our outcomes with natural fertility and what we're doing, 95% of women get pregnant
I believe it. I
versus
believe it.
30%. And so I went on and had 5 more healthy pregnancies after my first pregnancy. So I fixed a lot of my challenges once I dug in and figured it out. The challenge is like, we can do IVF and all these other reproductive technologies, but we're still putting women at risk for
Yeah.
early preterm births. We're putting them at risk for miscarriage. We're putting them at risk for having a preemie.
Neck pain, backaches, headaches, fatigue, the list goes on, and you're likely on it. Tired of the broken system and big pharma? We offer logical solutions, teach you to think critically, and empower you to reclaim your health. Welcome to the Unplugged Healthcast with Dr. Kevin Wall.
Hey, welcome back to the Unplugged Healthcast. Hey, it's time to get unplugged. The matrix of confusion going on in today's society on healthcare and the answers and solutions and the amount of information out there is just almost mind-boggling at times. So today we're going to bring you another great topic on an issue that really kind of hits home. It really hits home for me, and I'm betting it's hitting home for you or somebody that you know that is close to you. Chronic illness is something in our world that is rampant, and it's definitely damaging. It's overwhelming in itself. But today, this topic hits people in a different way than chronic illness can. Their topic is infertility. Infertility wreaks havoc in ways that illness doesn't. I mean, because it wreaks havoc with families and relationships, and it just transcends into multiple avenues that can just cause mental, emotional, and physical stress. So today we're going to talk about infertility, but more importantly, we're going to talk about a natural, more logical way to help people who have infertility or dealing with issues of infertility. Let me give you some stats, which you probably have already noticed. If you are around listening to anything, you've seen people struggling to get pregnant, stay pregnant. In the world, approximately 1 in 6 individuals are dealing with infertility issues. We know in America, 1 out of 8 women in the reproductive age are utilizing infertility services, which means they're going to get treatment. 1 out of 8 are actually going to get services for this. Our birth rate continues to decline. We are dropping 4% every year is what the estimations are. As infertility increases, the assisted reproductive technology, they call it ART, increases as well. The use of ART or assistance in infertility is increasing 5 to 10% every year. Today, I want you to ask a question. And the question isn't, should I go get ART and assisted reproduction technology? I want you to ask, what are these things doing to our bodies? When we start playing God a little bit, because I know that I may offend people a little bit, but I'm in the crowd that I'm offending. But when we start messing with our body to make it be pregnant in ways that could be really damaging, you start to have to ask the question, what is this doing for me long term? What is this doing for our women long term? What are the 5-year, 10-year, 20-year results that I'm getting from forcing my body into a cycle to get pregnant? These are unique questions. And I get why you're doing it, because it's stressful and you're willing to do anything. I get that. To get pregnant, to have a baby. I'll tell you all my personal story. I'm married 32 years. Amazing wife. We went through infertility early on. It was obvious this was not going to be easy to happen. We talked and we looked at all the options. And back 30 years ago, the conversation that we're having today, I don't think was around, or I surely never knew of it. So the answers were pretty strong. It was hormones and forcing yourself to be pregnant in ways that I just couldn't do to my wife. I couldn't ask of her. I just knew that God had a different plan. We went to adoption. Adoption is a great thing. Everyone, I think, thinks that. It's not for the faint of heart. I will tell you, maybe I'll do another podcast on adoption. But, we helped 3 children in ways that no one else was able to. We got great kids. I'm not saying, as I say, it was simple, but some of you are not going to consider adoption. I get it. But you got to understand, just forcing your body into fertility may not be the answer as well. There's got to be better solutions. There's got to be, with today's technology and our understanding of the human body today, there's got to be, and there are, ways for you to do this, deal with this in a much safer, more natural way. So today I brought in Dr. Mandy Patterson. And Doc, it's so great to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Dr. Kevin. I'm so happy to be here and have a conversation around infertility.
Well, let me set it up a little bit here on who you are and why I invited you to speak into something that I've got just enough information to be dangerous about. I totally know that. But again, I lived in the world, I dealt with infertility, and I made a decision. And here it is, my wife. She's been so healthy. Now, as I say, adoption has been difficult mentally, but physically, her body, she didn't go through all of the stuff that I know, we know that people are going through to get pregnant. And
Yeah.
as a result, she's now not dealing with the issues. You're a fertility specialist. You're a functional medicine practitioner. At one point, I think you're an occupational therapist, but you are a naturopathic medical doctor as well. You help families overcome hormone and fertility challenges so they can have and live the lives that they dreamed of. Just tell me, talk to me in your path, your background, what makes you kind of the expert I know you are.
Yeah, and to clarify just for everyone here, I am a traditionally trained naturopath, actually. So I'm not a naturopathic medical doctor. I actually was an occupational therapist, like you said, before going down the path of traditional naturopathic, program. And so, but I am double board certified in functional medicine through the Institute of Functional Medicine and the School of Applied Functional Medicine. So spent over 6 years of my life training with those institutions. And so part of my story is working on the backside of healthcare for many, many years. And I'll lead into just a little bit more about my personal situation so the audience can understand and connect all of it. But 23 years ago, I actually became extremely sick. I was 6 months pregnant with my first son. I was on my clinicals as an occupational therapist, got very sick, ended up walking into the hospital, and they were like, you need to get your stuff in order. We don't think you're going to survive this. I had developed severe preeclampsia, which for the listeners here is pregnancy-induced hypertension. And I had gone into HELLP syndrome, which is kidney and liver failure. So it was shocking to me. It was a huge wake-up call. And so I kind of knew, I was like, this could be it for me, right? Fast forward, my son ended up being born. He weighed 1 pound and 14 ounces. So actually fit in the palm of my husband's palm, like the size of a Beanie Baby.
Oh my gosh.
And spent roughly 5 months in the NICU. He had every single thing it felt like, short of a brain bleed. He ended up with a severe infection called necrotizing enterocolitis, which is a bowel infection where you've got to feed these little babies when they're so tiny, but you risk there being other issues because they're so premature. Their systems aren't ready to receive like food yet.
Yeah.
And so he ended up having to have 2 bowel surgeries, an ileostomy. So we went through it, and I came out on the other side of that, and I was like, why did I get so sick? I was actually a athlete growing up, into college even. I thought I was eating well, which was pretty much standard American diet, general, some fast food here and there, like, just more processed foods. And I really was like, I need to figure this out for myself, because my OBGYN told me that I would most likely, if I ever wanted more children, I wouldn't be able to have them because they would end up in early miscarriages or recurrent miscarriages. And I just, in my heart, could not accept that because I wanted more children. And so I kind of started diving in as I was working because I worked for many years as an OT,
Hmm.
worked all sectors of healthcare, including hospital, rehabilitation, ICUs, outpatient. I actually did NICU work as well. So really diverse background, but I started diving in and went back and got a holistic health coaching certification and just kept learning as I was working. And I just really was unsettled with the climate of our healthcare system. I would rehabilitate people and they would come back in. They were frequent flyers, we would jokingly say, in the rehabilitation world, because we really wouldn't solve their problems. Like they needed more education, they needed more one-on-one. And we all know, at least all of us that work in that system, is that you're constantly trying to get your billable hours in, and it's all about the paperwork and the reports and all those things. And that's kind of how I kind of segued into what I do now, because I really believed in my heart, I was like, I really am about root cause solutions. And so I went on and had 5 more healthy pregnancies after my first pregnancy. So I fixed a lot of my challenges once I dug in and figured it out. And I also used my genetics. Like I actually dug into, and so that's actually one of the things I do use in my practice to really customize and tailor programs for women and couples, to really help them optimize their health and fertility. So yeah, so it's been quite a long story, but I knew I needed to be part of the change in this world. And like you said, that requires us to have uncomfortable conversations about why things are the way they are, and what can we do to fix them. And so I feel like we are on the cusp of, things are really changing, and regardless of you like RFK or not, like, we're looking at things like, and there
Yeah.
needs to be transparency, and we need to have these conversations.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So long. We've been preaching that for 100 years probably, but
Yep.
yeah, however we get there, we're getting there, and I'm thankful for that. But all right, I got 2 questions. And how's the little guy? Like, what happened? Like,
Yeah,
he's
so I know. So he's 23 now. He because of the gut issues that he had in those surgeries he had when he was a preemie, the last 3 to 4 years we gotten into recurrent bowel blockages where
oh
he would
goodness.
land back in the hospital, and he
Yeah.
was actually in Chicago. He was working on a theology degree at Moody Bible Institute. And so there were 2 years back to back where I had to move him home because of the health issues. But last year it came to a head, and we ended up having to go back in and doing 2 other revision surgeries on
Wow.
that. So, like you
Goodness.
said, the challenge is like, we can do IVF and all these other reproductive technologies, but we're still putting women at risk for
Yeah.
early preterm births. We're putting them at risk for miscarriage. We're putting them at risk for having a preemie. And preemies, like, we can do lots of life-saving medical treatments today. I mean, actually, very like cutting edge things.
Oh, it's amazing. We're phenomenal firemen,
It
when it
is.
comes to healthcare, right?
Yes. But like that doesn't mean that like you're not going to have long-term consequences.
Right. Why create the fires? That because they're really you were almost self-creating those. That's what I think you're saying, and that's pretty much what I am saying.
Yes. Yes. Because at that time, like, I didn't really know what I knew when I got pregnant. Like, I took my prenatal vitamin like they told me. And then I later found out I'm like MTHFR homozygous. Like, I don't process folic acid. And I literally was taking, that was what I was prescribed by my OBGYN back then. And there's like, things that we do, and we need to start questioning why. Like, what is the evidence to back this up? And what are the outcomes that we're seeing,
100%. All right. Well, before I get any further, though, I want to get this out quickly, which is I know people are going to listen to this and they're going to want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So where is your clinic? And let's start off with how do they find you? And then we'll get into why they should find you more.
Yeah. So I'm online. I run a telehealth practice. I actually went online before COVID happened, which was good. My husband and I had moved overseas to Australia, and we lived there for 2 years. And so I went online back in 18. But my website is mandypatterson.com. So we have a lot of things on the website that are helpful resources. Like we've got a blog section. I also told you I run a podcast as well. And so there's just a lot of information there, and also just about some of the programs that I run with women and couples, and how to help them get to the root of what they've got going on.
All right. Well, if you're listening and you know somebody, which you do, or you're personally dealing with this stuff, stop the crazy HRT and the hormone stuff and just talk to Mandy before you go any further. So you can do a telemed visit anywhere across the country. Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I do strategy calls with women and couples all the time, and so I'm happy to help them that way.
All right. All right. Well, then my first point you've already kind of handled, but I want to just hit it a little further because people are home and they're just doing these things. They're making the decision. I'm going to do it. They're not realizing the complications, the risks they're taking. Or am I off my rocker? I'm this crazy chiropractor over here talking about infertility. What does this guy know? So about these treatments that are going, I think it's bad. I don't think you should override the body this much. But am I just on my own over here, or what are your thoughts on these treatments they're putting these women through?
Absolutely. And I'm seeing this all the time where, here's the thing, what most people don't realize is IVF success rates are around 30%. So that kind of just goes to show you how, we have these modern scientific advances, which actually can be quite miraculous. But
it is amazing.
But if the foundations of your house are off, it's not going to be a good house to carry a pregnancy for 9 months. And so, that is the biggest challenge. And when we go back and look through things from a functional viewpoint, we need to really dive into, nutrient deficiencies are rampant, especially in our culture, just because of the way that we eat, and the way our food is handled. And we could even go back to glyphosate and the hybridization of wheat in the 1950 was when the hybridization started, where we started messing with the very food that we consume, and wheat is crazy what has happened to it. And then, we add in all these other toxins, and there's so many things that we can't control, but there is a lot of things that we can control. And that's where I feel like the strategy of this comes in. And for the average person, it's overwhelming, right? If you go out on the internet and Google infertility, or if you're putting in Chat GPT or whatever, but that's where, we dive in and look below the surface. And I see food sensitivities being a big driver because people have challenges with their digestion, it's suboptimal. And what we don't connect is our gut is the epicenter of our health, right? I mean, the microbiome is really key. And we think of the things we've been exposed to over the years. And Kevin, I'm not sure your age, but I'm 45. And if we look at the vaccine schedule of from us, 40s and 50s, all the way down to our kids have 3 times the amount of vaccinations. And
if it goes by my schedule, it's 10 times.
Yes.
I had 6 or 7. Now it's 70 or 80.
Yeah. So now let's ask the question, well, are our health outcomes better because of it? I think we need to really start exploring the why.
Do you think there's a connection between some of that, the mercury, the formaldehydes that are preserving tissue we're putting in our body? Are they making us infertile? Is there any correlation? Do you have a theory or any science on that?
Yeah, I definitely believe that there is connections, and especially some of us have more of a genetic propensity where we're not great detoxers. I'm actually one of them.
Hey, this is Dr. Kevin Wall here. Think about it. We changed the air filters in our homes, the oil filters in our cars. What about the one filter that cleans your blood, your liver? After years of toxins, no wonder you're feeling sluggish, digestion slowing down, blood sugar getting off, and your energy dropping. That's why I personally recommend the Push Catch Liver Detox. What makes it different is that it addresses all 3 biochemical phases of detoxification: release, filter, and eliminate the toxins safely. It's easy, effective, and it's the one cleanse I trust. reset your body, restore your energy, and get unplugged. Start your liver cleanse today at drkevinwall.com.
And, and we have different genetic SNPs that can cause challenges. If we look at COMT and we look at the MTHFR and the vaccinations, if you dive into it, one book that I've read that is very thorough at explaining like the whole vaccine history and dates back to like many, many years ago it's called Turtles All the Way Down. And it was written by some physicians and researchers who decided to remain anonymous because of the backlash that they were going to experience. But it is a very thorough book, making connections about the vaccine schedules and how, the vaccines that we have been getting, like they really randomized controlled trials, like many of them weren't even done in randomized controlled trials, which is the gold standard of all the research that we do. And I can say that because my master's was in research. So, there's so many things there that we need to ask.
What about ovarian cancer, breast cancer, and these hormones that they're doing? Is there a connection? I've seen it, I've heard it, I've had patients with it, and I've just kept my mouth quiet because I want to yell. But you know what? I'm not the guy. Can you yell for me?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So I am trained by World Health Link, and I've done trainings with A4M and several of the cutting edge hormone societies in approaching bioidentical hormone replacement. Now, I'm not a prescriber in the state of Indiana, but I've done it to educate and inform myself so I can speak this into the women and the couples that I work with. The challenge is with the hormone replacement is they've used synthetic substances in these hormones. And what we see is higher amounts of cancers and other things with Premarin and like progestins, right? We're not talking
Those
about
are the early ones that people were
Yes.
just mass consuming. They were writing that stuff like it was candy.
Yes,
And
yes.
then they
And
got
so
off of that. They still doing that? Is Premarin still even out there?
they are still using it. And
You know
so,
what Premarin stands for, right? Premier
yes,
urine. It's horse
premier
urine.
urine.
And
Yes,
it's all
exactly.
jacked up.
It is.
Oh
It
my
is.
gosh.
And so if you start to dig into like the research on bioidenticals, actually bioidenticals in and of themselves can be helpful, right? And they can cut like oral estradiol, you actually can use that to cut down cardiovascular risk, which actually was something of real interest to me because on my mom's side, they have a very strong cardiovascular risk history and lots of family members that have died of cardiac events and strokes and those kinds of things. So, oral estradiol can be used, especially in menopause and beyond, to really help support health. And, I just wanted to dig into that too to understand it better because with the Women's Health Initiative and the Nurses Health Study, it was kind of labeled like all hormones are bad. But when you start to read between the lines, you start to see that there were some real issues with what they were doing in the research and how it was being conveyed to the general population. So, and two, to the point, like PCOS is the number one issue with infertility, right? That's the number one reason for infertility. And we know that those women have higher androgens and they don't have enough progesterone. Many of them are anovulatory or don't have a period, right? And so, when we start to dig into that as well, we can find that progesterone can be very beneficial to those women. And I'm talking micronized progesterone, like the bioidentical form, to really help women find, that balance that they need to restore things. But, I also do believe, being an herbalist and a homeopath as well, that we can use plants and plant medicine and other modalities that can really help achieve many of the same outcomes that we're striving to get in the bioidentical world. So,
All right, so here's what I heard. Hormones, the old stuff, really bad. Don't do that. Some of the newer stuff, the bioidentical stuff, if understood and managed by a professional, understands what they're doing, there's benefit and some use in helping some of the infertility issues. Is that a good
yes,
summary?
Absolutely. You've got it.
All right. I'm good at throwing rocks. I did it as a kid and I'm still doing it now at 60 years old. But let's get past maybe we know there's problems. Everyone, I think, is probably getting close to our agreement that maybe just jacking up the body with tons of just random hormones and treatments to push my system into fertility may or may not be the best answer. So let's talk about what would be maybe 3 or 4 things they could just start doing, or what is the answer? Let's maybe just jump to that because I think you got it.
Yeah, yeah. I think, a big problem, and I'm not sure what you see on your end of things, Kevin, but like I think insulin resistance is rampant. People have major issues. Like, I mean, we're careening down this path where over half of the US population is going to be diabetic. And I think that that is a real issue. And now there's many factors and nuances on why we have insulin resistant dynamic. A part of it is genetics, right? A piece of it. Then we can also think about just the stressful conditions we're living in on a day-to-day basis. And I really had a glimpse into this years ago when I lived overseas at how different people live. And Australians are a perfect example of they actually make time in their day and prioritize their self-care. So they like mid-morning, they have a morning tea because my kids went to the schools there and they would sit down and have their snacks, have a little bit of social time and just relax and chill out. Americans are awful with that, right? I mean, like we just are constantly going from one thing to the next. And so that can really increase insulin resistance and other things. Another key piece is our breakfast meal. What are we eating? Like it's usually like a Starbucks takeout with a like iced macchiato and like, maybe that and, maybe like a pumpkin muffin at this time of year. And so we don't realize the power of literally sitting down, having a good solid meal that's solid with protein that really helps to like stabilize our blood sugar levels for the rest of the day. So, I really talk about getting adequate protein in that meal and focusing on that first thing.
Now, people are listening to this, they're going, well, these are so logical, simple things. Are you sure this is going to help my infertility? I know you got more steps, but I just want to nip this before people check out on us. Sometimes the simplest answer is the answer.
Yep.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, in fact, I actually was at I'm serving on a retreat weekend coming up, and one of our ladies has struggled with infertility, and she just did IVF, and I was kind of looking, no judgment, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
People
hard
make
to be healthy in
decisions.
our
I make mistakes. I jack things up. People jack it up.
yeah, but like like I'm looking at the table and there's a Mountain Dew sitting there, and I'm like, that is probably like the last thing like I would do if I'm struggling with fertility and like trying to get pregnant is, that's like number one is something that we could just take out of the diet is just soda, right? Just that might be one simple step. Because I don't like to overwhelm people too much, but we need to do it in steps and it needs to be, it needs to feel doable for people and not overwhelming. So like in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what other swaps can we have for that? Like, soda is not great because of all the sugar that's in it. Could we swap that out for some electrolytes? Because like we want something that, and that's actually nourishing our cells and helping to improve cellular metabolism and like other things. So simple things, right? Like you said.
Yep. Yeah. If I could just intervene in any fashion, it would be you don't know what you don't know. You think that Mountain Dew or that simple change, well, how is that going to make me get pregnant? You got to realize that it is an equation. You have to have an optimal physiological functioning body
Yeah.
before you ever have a chance to physiologically hold another body, right? And when your body knows it can't sustain that, it will take measures to protect itself from becoming pregnant because it knows the pregnancy will be dangerous, harmful, difficult at best. And so people don't realize you got to start right from the table and then you start looking around yourself. We just did a podcast on insulin, last
Yeah.
podcast. Go listen to that one. Before that, we did it on your stress is your mess and how to
Yep.
be organized. And right now, you already hit 2 of those things. as solutions, or at least the initial stages of maybe working towards natural infertility solutions. What else do we do?
Well, and I think framing this around, I don't know about you, but I'm an analogy person and I think like I'm visual. So I want to make the association for people here that, if you're drinking a soda or like a coffee that has all this sugar in it, our body does not discriminate stressors. So it might as well think it's running from a Bengal tiger out on the Siberian, like whatever, like out in the middle of nowhere. Like our body doesn't discriminate. So like if our blood sugars are always jacked up, our body's just not going to feel safe and regulated to be able to like conceive, right?
Right,
Like
right.
the conditions are not going to be good. That could be the same with being an unhealthy relationship or work environment where you're stressed out all the time and you're frustrated and like your cortisol's like staying high. Like there is so much there with the mental emotional piece that is determining our outcomes. And I will be the first one to say, this is what almost killed me 23 years ago, because I did not understand then that I was killing myself. And my son ended up being born 3 months premature. And that was $1 million hospital stay
Ouch.
back then.
Yeah,
So
of course.
yeah,
Now
the
it's
stakes
3
are
million.
high. Yeah. So
Yeah, they think it's egg plus sperm equals baby. And if that doesn't work, I'm infertile. And it's not that. There is so many other calculations in that. They're not complicated calculations. They do require some self-discipline. They do require some self-awareness. And they do require some simple changes, but we're all addicted to the caffeine, we're addicted to the coffee, we're addicted to the Mountain Dew. I went to chiropractic college. I was
yeah,
hooked on Mountain Dew. It took me years to get off that. I still struggle, man. You said Mountain Dew and my saliva glands started going. I
yes,
would love to drink a Mountain Dew right now. I just know it's killing me now. Like I
yeah.
got too much knowledge, and if you knew what we knew, as I always said, they would do what we do. So, all
Well,
right, so
and
keep
here's
going.
another thing. Here's another key piece. I think you guys will find this very interesting. And most people that have tried IVF know this. And I'm really passionate about this because two of my sister-in-laws dealt with really significant infertility issues. And I saw what they went through. One of my best friends, same thing, went through 3 rounds of IVF, dropped over probably $70,000, $80,000. And so my husband, who's an entrepreneur, was talking to another guy and they were talking different business models, and he actually was a CEO of a IVF clinic. And he told him basically, we know that when a couple walks in the door, it's 70K. Like we make 70K. So like I don't think we can even begin to understand how we're being trained. And like, it's like, yes, you're gonna drop that money and there are no promises. And it's, the same with like,
What a great gig.
right, what we do. I mean, but we're definitely improving lab markers. We're definitely moving you towards, better insulin regulation and like basically like down the pipeline. And what many women don't understand, and I like to frame it for them as, you struggle with infertility. That means you've got issues. There's things that need to be dealt with. And if you don't, it is going to eventually catch up with you in some other form or another as you age. And I don't care if it's cardiovascular disease. I don't care if it's cancer or strokes or autoimmune, issues.
This is an early flag. This is a chance for you to
Yes,
prevent future issues, from cardiovascular to other cancers to even health issues that are what are now called type 3 diabetes, which is really dementia.
yes,
And again, these insulin issues, these things you're talking about, we got to stop running to the Band-Aid answers. Not only will you potentially get pregnant, but you'll prevent and give yourself a future that you may just be cashing in for a short-term, quick $70,000 bill.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
painful, isn't it? I got to take 2 seconds, and I'm going to blow my own horn for a quick second, because people don't also realize chiropractic and infertility. I've had so many women that have came in, and they didn't come in for infertility. They just came in for pelvic problems. Their back
yeah,
was an issue. Their pelvis was jacked up. I fix their pelvis. They come in a month later because I educate them on what the nerves are going to. And the
Yes.
nerves are going to your ovaries and they're going to your uterus and they're keeping them functioning and they're allowing the egg to be released at the right time. And when you connect the nerves by fixing the back, all of a sudden they came in, oh my gosh, doc, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
I went through $70,000 worth of infertility and you're 2, 3 weeks of chiropractic and boom, I'm pregnant. So
Yep.
you got to consider chiropractic if you have back issues as a possible connection or a team approach to
Yep.
infertility. And if you were here and I was still practicing like I was, Mandy, we'd be working together because we'd be getting people pregnant. And that's a weird statement, but it's true in a really fun, awesome way.
Yeah, for real. And like, that's a very good point because obviously being, an occupational therapist, I was trained in myofascial, really did a lot of hands-on treatment back in the day, even used laser and many other things. But something for our women that are dealing with like endometriosis and PCOS, right? A lot of times there are pelvic restrictions in there. And if they've had any sorts of surgeries, there can be scar tissue. And so my son actually went down to Clear Passage in Florida. They actually work with a lot of women around infertility, that women that have had bowel surgeries and other like adhesions from these kinds of things. And like you said, there is a real place for like manipulation, be that chiropractic and or myofascial, to really just like open things up. And so if women are struggling with that, they probably need to find another expert or like clinician that can help them address those things.
Yeah, there's so many answers, and I'm hoping you guys are just consider we're not just crazy. We're crazy about this answer, and that there's a better way. Well, maybe one last thing, and we could go on, I know, forever. And I try to keep these podcasts somewhat reasonably timed so people don't just check out on us. But for people that have already maybe went down that road, and they've kind of already messed with their body, or they want to do it again, what do you tell people to maybe reverse the effects of them going through that, and or maybe avoid doing it again?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know what I find, like I said, a lot of things go back to the gut, right? And in nutrient deficiencies and insufficiencies, like food sensitivities, toxins, and those kinds of things. So we can glean a lot from like a standard blood work panel, right? So a lot of times physicians will do these panels once a year. They'll run them through insurance, and you get these labs back, and most of the time physicians are like, oh yeah, you're good, you're on your way, send them on their way. And like you find out 2 years later they're type 2 diabetic, and the smoke has been going for years, right? So I think looking at labs and just diving in, and seeing where there needs to be replacement. I do all kinds of extensive testing in my practice with comprehensive stool testing, hair tissue mineral analysis, food sensitivity. Also use a lot of genetics in the work that I do. And so I think what cannot be replaced is a very good health history with a clinician that knows what they're talking about, that can go in and connect the dots for them and put together a strategic protocol, right? And I like to tell people, the functional path or the holistic path is not the quick path, but we can turn things around quickly within 3 to 4 months and, really have someone primed and ready to go to like look at getting pregnant. But depending upon the individual and what they've had going on over time, it might take a little longer, and so, but some of these diagnostic tests can be very, very helpful, in really, I think, getting to a place of figuring out where the imbalances are.
Well, I hope everyone's hearing that and getting hope, because there
Yeah.
is answers and there's answers. And what I heard there that I just want to reiterate is within 3 to 4 months, you can actually turn people around into answers that can lead to pregnancy, fertility, and other health benefits while you're having a baby, right? Versus getting sick while you're having a baby, you actually become healthy. I also want to touch on a topic that unfortunately I get a little I would say dramatic, but I get a little worked up about it. And this concept that when naturopaths are not on my insurance. And so, they'll go to their doctor that are in their insurance. They'll get the blood work, as you mentioned, that's covered by insurance. They'll get no answers, nothing but pharmaceuticals. And then they'll go drop $70,000 on infertility treatment. I got a weird question for you. Doc, I pull out a checkbook. I write you $70,000. How long are you going to treat me for? Isn't that be a lifetime of care almost? Like, you'd treat me for a lifetime for
Yes.
70 grand, and you'd fix all kinds of problems. It's a crazy process of thinking that we go through as humans when we just do financial things like that, but we won't spend a couple $1,000 on someone who's knowledgeable and spent their life on getting people out of these problems, which I know you have done in the last
Yes.
20 some years.
Yeah, it's kind of mind blowing, right? And like I get this all the time. So on Thursdays at noon Central Standard Time, I host a hormone happy hour where women can bring me any of their questions. We'll talk through it and I'll give them feedback, right? And so yesterday, the question was coming up. Well, do you cover, or are you covered by insurance? No, I'm not covered by insurance. The problem is insurance doesn't cover for anything that's going to optimize you. They cover enough to keep you alive and hooked on their drugs. And that is what they do. And so, I work with people that want to transform their health. Transformative work does not come with a $30 copay. So we get in, we do the work. I run a 4-month program, like I told you, called Hormone Harmony. I do diagnostic testing within that program. I do a couple one-to-ones and get you on a path. You come in, there's video modules to start learning. I give you direction and guidance, and you get coaching, which is what people need. They don't need a script. They need coaching. They need somebody to walk alongside of them that understands their challenges, that have walked in that path before. And that is where we get the results. That is where the life-changing results happen. And I want to plug this, like our outcomes with natural fertility and what we're doing, 95% of women get pregnant.
I believe it.
Versus
I believe
30%.
it.
So
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just been preaching to the choir. I just want to give you an amen, sister, and great job in doing that. Hormone Harmony. What a great feeling. What a great thought. What a great concept that you can find harmony, and not just for your pregnancy, but for your body. That's so awesome. Well, what a great way to finish our podcast. One more time. Where do they go get Hormone Harmony? Can't even say it, but you can do it. Where do they find it?
Yeah, so I am at mandypatterson.com and MANDY Patterson, double T. I'm also out on Instagram, Dr. Dr. Mandy Patterson. I'm on Facebook as Mandy Patterson Functional Medicine Practitioner. We run the Gutsy Fertility podcast, so they can look us up on Apple. We've got great reviews. We launched an entire season and hoping to launch the second season coming up. And if they want to just get in my world, they can get on our newsletter by going to the website. And like I said, we host weekly calls on Thursdays that's open to the public at noon Central Standard Time. Bring me any of your questions and we will walk through it.
There you go. Too many resources for you not to do something different. And that's what we're telling you. That's what the podcast is about. That's why I do this every week, that we're just trying to get you to do something and stop taking the drugs. There's answers to solutions. Here's one. Here's 5. She just gave it to you. So, Doc, so great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to wrap this thing up. If you want information on Dr. Patterson, you can go to our website. We'll have it there. We'll go to our show notes. You'll find it there. Leave a message for me. I'll make sure I get you in contact with her. But you got to do something. And minimally, you should share this podcast, subscribe if you will. We need to get this out. People need to hear these stories. They need to meet people and professionals that are passionate like Mandy is. And with that, you're going to get real answers, not just insurance coverage. And man, don't get me going on that again. All right, Doc, well, thanks again for having you. If you guys want more information, as I say, go to our website. But until the next episode, this is Dr. Wall. Always remember, be healthy, be blessed, never give up, never give in. We'll see you again on the next episode.
The information provided in this podcast is for general knowledge and informational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional for diagnosis and treatment of any medical condition. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Unplugged Healthcast or Dr. Wall.